What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. I'm Wyatt Bagnall, and on today's show, I am going to be doing essentially a breakdown of contenders and pretenders. I'm breaking them down into three categories, though. So contenders, pretenders, and just blunders. To break down like the criteria that I would put for each team, contenders are the teams that I think are absolutely real. These are the teams that have a legitimate shot to win the Super Bowl. Pretenders are teams that they will win enough games that they'll make the playoffs possibly or get near it, but they will ultimately let you down. And blunders are the teams that their season's just lost. They're not really competitive. And I think that they're already looking forward to next year, right? So, starting off with the AFC East, we're going to get it right out of the way. The Buffalo Bills, they are an absolute contender. This is the team that I picked to win the Super Bowl. I still feel that they're the best team, so contender. Miami Dolphins. This was a little bit of a tough one because we haven't seen a ton of them, but I'm going to call them a pretender for now. I think they're good. They might make the playoffs. They won't. I don't think they'll make a deep playoff run or anything like that. They could move up to contender possibly, but given that we haven't seen them with their quarterback for half the year, I have to leave them in pretender. Jets, also a pretender. They've started off really well this year, but I don't know how real they are. I don't think they're a true playoff team. I think they'll probably be on the outside looking in, but they'll give Jets fans just enough hope to think that they have a chance. Next up, Pats. I know that the Patriots are playing pretty well. I wanted to call them a blunder just because I think it's what their roster is, but they've won enough for me to call them a pretender. They might win enough for Patriots fans to get on that high horse of we got Bill, we'll figure everybody out, we'll do this, we'll do that, and then get smoked like they did in the playoffs last year. So I think they are a true contender, or true pretender. I'm sorry. On to the AFC North. We're going to start off with the Baltimore Ravens. They are a pretender for sure. They are winning games that are pretty easy, except for Cincinnati, and they're putting up fights against a lot of teams, but they're blowing leads in half their games, and that is something that's really concerning, especially when you're going to be going up against teams like Kansas City, like Buffalo, and yeah, I think they'll win the AFC North. I think that they will give Ravens fans a lot of optimism, and then they'll choke it all away. Bengals, I'm calling them a pretender also. They are continuously dropping games against good teams and beating bad and injured teams. Bengals fans every single week think that they've got it fixed. They're back on the right track, yada, yada. They're not on the right track. They are a team that overachieved last year, but that optimism is undying in Cincinnati right now, and as a result, they're a pretender. They're overhyped, and they're not gonna win the amount of games that Bengals fans think that they will. Going from there to the Browns, I'm calling this season a blunder for the Browns. They are losing too many games that they should have won. Had they pulled out two of those other games, they would be a pretender for me, with the potential of moving to a contender once Deshaun Watson came back. But they've dropped the games they should win, and I don't think they'll be hanging around or even really be a factor by the time they get their quarterback back. So it is a blunder of a season for them. They are gone. And I am saying the same thing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are rebuilding, they are reloading, and they might win a couple of games. I think this will be Mike Tomlin's first losing season, and as a result, it is a blunder of a year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Moving on to the AFC South, I'm just going to go ahead and get it out of the way because I don't really want to talk about any of them. I am going to say three of these teams is a blunder of a season. I'm calling it a blunder of a season for the Colts, Jags, and the Titans. They are just not built to be competitive. I don't want to talk about them. They annoy me. I will give the Titans the pretender status because I think that they've at least been consistent, and they'll probably win the division and make the playoffs. I don't think anybody views the Titans as a team that's going to make much noise when they get there, But I think that they got a good shot of getting there. But yeah, I'm not giving much time to the AFC South. They don't deserve much time. It's a bad division. On to the AFC West. I'm going to start with the Chiefs because it's obvious. The Chiefs are a contender. It's the Bills and the Chiefs in the AFC, and then a big gap to everyone else. So Chiefs and Bills are obvious contenders. Patrick Mahomes has checked all the boxes since losing Tyreek Hill. He's an elite quarterback. They have an elite offense. Their defense is a little bit suspect at times, but not awful. So it's more than good enough for the Chiefs to hold their own, even against a team like Buffalo. So there we have it. On to the Broncos. It is a blunder of a season for the Denver Broncos. I was really hoping that they would achieve more. They've shown small signs and like bits and pieces, but they're not winning games. Hackett's already on the hot seat, and man, their defense is awesome, which is why I would love to say that they're a pretender, but their offense just isn't there at all. So, blunder. Same deal with the Raiders, even though the Raiders might be at the top of this like blunder category because they could so easily be a winning team, but they're not one. They are 1-4 through 6 weeks with the bye week, and their season's essentially over. It doesn't matter how like close the games are, you've lost them. And when it's a lost season by week 5, it can't be described as anything but a blunder. On to the Chargers. The Chargers are, I think, the absolute epitome of a pretender. They are 4-2. Most of those wins have been dumb luck. Like the Broncos and Browns win, for example, like just the last 2 weeks. Complete luck. The Chargers refuse to ever get out of their own way, and it won't change. It doesn't matter how much talent they have there. They're going to keep making bad decisions at bad times, and it's going to bite them in the ass. So they are like the epitome of the pretender tier. Chargers, they firmly right there. On to the NFC. We're going to start in the NFC East with the Philadelphia Eagles. I have them as a contender, but if I was doing like a tiers list, it would be like Buffalo and Kansas City. Then Philly is like by themselves in tier 2. And then like tier 3 is like below them. Because they seem to be a cut above most of the teams. But I think I think Kansas City and Buffalo are firmly above them. They're a contender because I think there's a really strong chance they can get to the Super Bowl. And when you get to the game, anything can happen. Dallas Cowboys, I've got them as a pretender just because I haven't seen them with Dak. I think there's a really good chance they jump to the contender tier. But I just have to see it before I put them there. They played really, really well on defense. Obviously, they're playing better on offense than people thought. But Cooper Rush has been limited. So theoretically, when Dak comes in, that improves. But remains to be seen. You never really know. They are currently the top of my pretender tier, though, with a really strong chance of moving to contender. Giants pretender also. They're winning games, but I think they're a year or maybe even 2 years early. I said they're like the Titans last year in a previous video. And the Titans were the epitome of a pretender where they're going to win a lot of these games. They're going to be in the playoffs. There's going to be a lot of positivity around them because they like came out of nowhere to do it. And then they're going to get eliminated. They just don't have the roster. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, the Giants were like going into a rebuild and they are 5-1. That's amazing. Like this is not meant to be me like dunking on the Giants. This is like I think what Brian Daboll's done is incredibly impressive. But they don't have the horses to really, really compete. So they're a pretender. Then the Commanders, it's a blunder. It's a blunder of a year completely. They're one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the league. And when you are one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the league, you are nothing but a blundering team. So goodbye, Commanders. Moving on to the NFC North. Gonna go with the Minnesota Vikings. I've got them as a pretender because they are here in large part because of an easy schedule at 5-1. And the one time they played a contender in Philly, they got absolutely smacked. So if we see them against some other good teams and they pull out those games and they win them, they can also potentially move up a tier. But I just have a hard time looking at the Vikings and their schedule and Kirk Cousins and everything like that and saying, I think this team can win the Super Bowl. It's possible, but this feels like a team that's going to let you down at the last second. Packers. This one is tough because I have no faith in their roster, but they just might be competitive enough to hang around. I'm going to go ahead and really commit to it, though. I'm going to say this is a blunder of a season for the Packers. Their offense is not playing well. They don't have weapons on the outside, and running the ball is not enough to win in today's NFL. And their defense, the unit that was supposed to carry them this year, has fallen flat on its face more times than it has stood up. So it might be a little bit over aggressive to say it about the Packers, but I think it's a blunder of a year for them. Lions blunder. This is disappointing for me too. They've played really close games like they did last year, but they're still losing them, and that needs to change. Their offense was playing awesome until they played the Patriots when they got shut out. And at 1-4, when they had their bye week, it's like the Raiders. It doesn't matter how close the games were. It doesn't matter how competitive you've been in them. When you're 1-4, your season is essentially over. And when your season is over by week 6, it's a blunder. Bears, blunder. Just like the Commanders, bottom 4 team in the league, blunder. Competing for the top pick in the draft. Get out of my face. Goodbye. All right. NFC South. The 2 Southern divisions both frickin' suck. So just like I did with the AFC South, I'm going to get basically all these out of the way right now. I'm going to say Saints and Panthers. I'm going to give the Panthers their own special shout out. Panthers are a special type of blunder. They are the worst team in the league right now. It's really, really bad. And they probably are going to have the first overall pick. So when you're the worst team in the league, it's a blunder of a year. The Saints are losing too many games for it to be considered a pretender. They're on the higher end of the blunder tier, but it's still a blunder. Falcons. I'm going to go ahead and put the Falcons and the Bucks in the pretender tier just because they have both at least shown to be feisty, and the difference is they're actually winning like more games than they've lost. So they're both pretenders because I think they both have a chance to like be relevant by the end of the year. One of those 2 teams will win the division. I still think it's Tampa Bay, but I'm putting Atlanta in the pretender tier also just out of like good faith for the amount of fight that they've shown. But yeah, Buccaneers are a pretender for sure. They don't play well enough on defense and they don't score enough on offense, but they've ground out some of these games and somebody has to win the NFC South. Probably going to be Tampa Bay, but they're going to get bounced pretty quick. And on to the NFC West now. We're going to start off with last year's champs, the Rams. I'm calling it a blunder of the season for the Rams. They're 3-3, they're 500, but they don't feel like a good 500 team at all. It doesn't feel like they're trending in like the getting above 500 thing. It feels like they're trending down. And look for the Rams to be active around the trade deadline, but they don't have a ton of high value assets to trade. So I think that they might miss the playoffs this year, which would be an absolute blunder for the defending Super Bowl champs. Seahawks. I'm going to hold off on the Seahawks. Cardinals, it's a blunder of a year also. They're the bottom of this division, and it doesn't feel like that's going to change either. Regardless of if they get Hopkins back and Robbie Anderson in the building, yada, yada, yada. It doesn't really matter. They don't have the pieces on defense. They don't have enough pieces on offense. They don't have the coaching. And I think heads are going to be rolling in the desert this offseason. So, blunder of a year. Seahawks, I'm going to put them as a pretender because they've shown to be feisty. And with the injuries to the 49ers, this division is open enough that this team could make it interesting. But I'm still going to call them a pretender. They could easily be a blunder. But yeah, I'm just going to call them a pretender. just because they played above expectations here. And with the injuries to the top team in the division, it opens up. And last but not least, the 49ers, they are a pretender also. This could quickly turn into a blunder of a season for them if they can't get healthy. Their injury report is essentially their playoff team like roster. All of their Pro Bowlers, with the exception of like Fred Warner, can't stay healthy. So they're a pretender. They could be a contender. If they get healthy, they could potentially, just like Dallas or Minnesota, prove to be a contender in the NFC. But they are like on the knife edge of going from like contender to blunder. Like that, all of those range of outcomes are available for them, and it's all having to do with health and Jimmy Garoppolo. And as a result of Jimmy Garoppolo being their quarterback, they're staying in that pretender tier because I don't think he ever does anything that like wins them a Super Bowl. So there you have it. And yeah, that is my post week 6 contender, pretender, blunder breakdown for the NFL. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys next time. Have a good one.